Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video by me, Tarot by Andy. I hope you are all having a blessed week and weekend, I guess, depending on when I upload this. It is currently Saturday, so that is when I'm recording. Today's video comes from a question from Maria, who asks how I incorporate the Psalms in my craft and in my spell work. So we are going to get down to that. So for any of you who do not know, the Psalms is a book in the Old Testament that is made up of poems written by various different biblical characters. And some of them we know for sure wrote them, and others we are a little less certain. But according to the Jewish tradition, the book of Psalms was composed by the first man, who was Adam, Melchizedek, Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon, Heman, Jeduthun, Asaph, and the three sons of Korah. On the other hand, Christians and other biblical historians believe that the Psalms were actually composed by Moses, David, Solomon, Heman, Ethan, Asaph, and the sons of Korah. Jeduthun is believed to have only sung the Psalms in his choir and not actually write them. So there's that. Since I am a ChristoPagan, I will be taking the Christian perspective on this, but I brought up the Jewish traditions in respect, since it's in the Old Testament, which is most venerated by the Jews. And yeah, but we brought up both perspectives just to give an eye-opening experience. What we know based on the biblical evidence is that Moses wrote Psalm 90. 73 Psalms identify King David as the writer, which are Psalms 3 through 9, 11 through 32, 34 through 41, 51 through 65, 68 through 70, 86, 101, 103, 108 through 110, 122, 124, 131, 133, and 138 through 145. Solomon is known to have written Psalms 72 and 127. Heman the Israelite wrote Psalm 88, and Ethan the Israelite wrote Psalm 89. Asaph wrote 12 Psalms, which were Psalms 50 and 73 through 83, and the sons of Korah wrote 11 Psalms, which were Psalms 42, 44 through 49, 84 and 85, 87 and 88. So what's remaining is 50 Psalms that do not mention their author, but many scholars believe that King David also wrote some of these. I have a picture that I found online that easily depicts this in a visual way if you are a visual observer, or if I talk too fast and you didn't want to pause enough to if you didn't want to continuously pause to write this down, I'll have the picture here. You could just pause and copy down the picture, continue the video if that is something you prefer. So now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The poetry in itself is a form of magic. So although the entire Bible is a book of spells, the Psalms is a more potent form because it's made up of poems that express and release emotions and manifestations into the universe and can be used as an offering to deities and spirits. So in my opinion, Psalms is just a powerful book of spells to have. And you can have a psalm for just about anything, from money to love to hope to justice and so on and so forth. A book that I would suggest on this topic is Power of the Psalms by Anna Riva. This is where I got a lot of my resources and information from. So I would highly recommend that if that is something you are interested in and you want to go into more details besides this video. You can get that book as well. So now I'm going to discuss how I personally use the Psalms in my magic. So as I said before, there is a psalm for just about any situation or emotion you want spell work for. So I have a list on a Google Doc of different categories that I personally use the Psalms for. And if you would like access to this Google Doc, you can I wouldn't say comment below, because I know you probably don't want to make your emails public. Oh my gosh. Technical difficulties. My phone fell, but we're good now. So you can DM me on Instagram. You can email me. I have my email on my Instagram as well. And you could just let me know, and I will give you access. I will share this Google Doc with you because it's useful. It's a visual, quick access. I find it's organized, so I could quickly scroll through and find the verse, and then look up the verse in the Bible. But yes, so the first category that I use the Psalms for is a popular one. It's love. This can include love from God, self-love, love from others, relationship love, any form of love. I just condense them into one form because I feel like all the verses can be used for, like, all verses that talk about love can be used to describe all sorts of love. So, yeah. So, I will speak as slowly as I can as I list through these verses. And if you find it hard to catch up, you can pause it, write it down, or like I said, I can give you access to the Google Doc so you don't need to take notes at all if that's something that interests you. So, as I said, love is the first category, and the Psalms that I associate with love: Psalm 33, verse 20 to 22, Psalm 57, verse 10, Psalm 85, verses 10 to 11, Psalm 86, verse 15, Psalm 94, verses 18 to 19, Psalm 100, verse 5, Psalm 138, verse 8, and Psalm 143, verse 8. So obviously there's a lot more than these, but these were kind of like my top 8 favorites that I will refer to most often that talk about love. And yeah, so obviously there's way more. If some of these you don't connect with, you can search your own. You could Google Psalms on love and see what pops up and see what verses come up that you feel more called to follow. But yeah, these are the ones that I personally use. The next category is confidence, and the Psalms associated with confidence is Psalm 16, verse 8, 20, verse 7, 27, verse 3, 27, verses 13 through 14, 34, verses 1 through 3, 71, verse 5, 118, verse 13, 139, verses 13 through 14. Confidence is something that I struggle with a lot. Trauma in the past. Because of trauma in the past, because of being brought down so much by family, by ex-friends. And so confidence is something that I find is truly important. So I use the Psalms for that as well. It's just something that's crucial to me, and I just really needed it. But yeah, so confidence, crucial, and the Psalms is great for that. The next category is motivation. As a student, almost finished my bachelor's degree, but I plan to pursue master's studies eventually when I get in. But even like when it comes to my work, my job, doing my craft practice, I find that I really need motivation, that it's something I struggle with. And so the Psalms is great for that. So the Psalms I associate with motivation are Psalms 23, verses 1 through 4, 26, verses 2 to 3, 32, verse 8, 34, verse 17, 37, verse 5, 37, verse 23 through 24, and 121, verses 1 through 2. So, yeah. So that's for motivation, and they really help, honestly. Like, doing motivation spells is my jam. Like, that is my cup of tea, as you would say. It's something that I really love doing, and I find that it works. It works, and I don't know if it's a placebo effect or if it's God giving me the motivation. I choose to believe that it's God's power. I choose to believe that spells are that's why I do candle magic, right? Because I believe they work. They in themselves send me a sense of calm right away. Like, even as I record this little like episode, podcast, YouTube video episode, whatever you call it, I have my Jesus candle lit, because I find that as I light a candle, I am instilled with motivation and with grace, and it's just a wonderful feeling that I experience. So yeah, so motivation, truly important in my life. The next category is just as important as motivation. It's anxiety or anti-anxiety verses. There are so many of these. Like, anxiety, feeling fear and stress is such a common theme throughout all the Psalms that it was so hard for me to narrow down to just like 8 verses. So if you want way more, I could find way more, like, or you could find way more if you're feeling bold enough to search for your own. But for anxiety, I have Psalm 16, verse 8, 25, verses 1 through 3, 27, verses 1 to 3, 40, verses 1 to 3. Sorry about that. 46, verses 1 to 3. So many. It's always at the beginning, I find. It's always at the beginning. Like, just the first few verses are like, anxiety, be gone. It's funny. Anyways, continuing on. 56, verse 3, 61, verses 1 to 3, and 142, verses 1 to 2. So that's for anxiety. And like I said, if you want more, or I might do an episode on magic that I do to reduce my anxiety, because it's just something we all experience. It's something that we all feel and we all need to deal with at one point of our lives. The next one is money or abundance. So this could be abundance in food, in shelter, in friends, in abundance in, or like obviously money. But the Psalms that I associate with that are Psalms 1, verse 3, 34, verse 10, 37, verses 25 to 26, 112, verse 3, 115, verse 14, 118, verse 25, and 145, verses 15 to 16. So that's for money and abundance. Money is a less important thing in my life, but it's obviously important because, unfortunately, it is needed to survive. So it is something that I do magic for. But although I hate it because I don't like to rely on money, I don't like to rely on material things, but at the end of the day, I need to live. It's what God wants me to do, and the best way to try to survive is to get some money in, get some abundance in, to take care of myself and my body. So there's that. The next one is fertility. This is something that's a little less important to me, as someone who doesn't want any biological children in my at all someday. I am a trans man. I do plan on medically transitioning at one point, so I do not plan to have biological kids, but fertility is important for others, so I figured I'd put this in video. But also, verses on fertility help me connect to the divine feminine. So by doing this, I will connect to the Holy Spirit, to Ashera, whatever you call her, Mother Earth, and so I added fertility in this video. So the verses associated with fertility are Psalm 4, verses 6 to 7, 17, verse 14, 65, verses 11 through 13, 113, verse 9, 127, verse 3, and 139, verses 13 to 14. So if you want some fertility in your life, even with plants, I find that verses on fertility can help if you're growing plants or growing a garden. So that's another way I use it too. So fertility doesn't even though a lot of these verses do mention pregnancy, do mention a barren woman getting pregnant or being knit in your mother's womb, you could use that concept of fertility to manifest that your plants grow healthy, that your plants grow big and strong. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the context of pregnancy. The next, which is the second last theme I have, is power or strength. So a lot of these verses that I will list mention God's power, but I believe that God gives us his power. So by calling on God's power, we are also given that strength. So it's like asking God, you have the power, give me some of it to push me through this day, push me through this difficulty. So that's why I included these particular verses, and that's why I believe that calling on God's power is a powerful thing, because you gain that power. Your faith is gaining that power. So the Psalms associated with that are Psalms 27 verse 10, 37 verses 3 through 4, 68 verse 35, 73 verse 26, 89 verse 13, 147 verses 4 to 5, and 121 verses 1 to 2. Finally, the last one I have on this list here is protection. Again, there are so many. The Bible refers to God's protection and God being with us throughout the entire Bible, basically, but especially in the Psalms. I feel like back then, those who wrote these verses, I feel like they were doing manifestation spells. By writing these, they were manifesting God's protection. So that's why I love the Psalms. You can see it's literally spell work that the writers were doing, and it's literally it's a tangible proof that witchcraft is not a sin, that those who wrote the Bible did witchcraft of all sorts, and that it's only a malevolent thing if you use it for evil purposes. So if you use it to manipulate others, if you use it to gain power in order to control others. So gaining power for yourself to push through this difficult life is not a sin. Using that power to gain control and be an authoritarian, a dictator, that is a sin. So again, the book of Psalms, I feel like, is evidence that they did witchcraft back then, they did spells, and they're not a sin in of itself. It's all about intention. So for protection, we have Psalms 4, verse 8, 18, verse 16 through 19, 23, verses 1 through 6, 31, verse 2, 40, verses 14 to 15, 55, verses 16 to 17, 91, verses 9 to 16, and 116, verses 3 through 9. Again, there are so many more than this. You could find some yourself. I could find some as well if you want. You can DM me and I can. But there is a lot to it. So now I'm going to discuss quickly, before this video comes to an end, the general steps that I follow when using the Psalms in my spells. I specialize in candle magic. I do water magic from time to time, where I'll have a bowl of water and I'll just pray the Psalms over it, do the sign of the cross with my wand. I have a wand with crystal on it, and I just use the bottom of it to do the sign of the cross in the water. And as I do that, as I'm doing the sign of the cross in the water, I read the Psalms for whatever intent I have, and then use water in whatever I do, whether it's cleaning. If it's for abundance and money, I use it for cleaning. If it's for anything related to myself, so like anxiety or power or whatever, what else I listed, motivation, I'll drink it. If it's for protection, I'll again use it to kind of clean, but like wipe down. So like I'll wipe it down at my windowsill to protect me from outside forces that have ill intent. And if it's for my plants, so like for fertility, when I said you could use it for your plants, I'll use that water to water my plants. So you can use the water in different ways, different aspects, depending on what you are trying to manifest. So that's one way I use Psalms in water magic. But again, my specialization that I do all the time is candle magic. So this is how I do use the Psalms in my candle magic. So first I look up the Psalms on my situation or emotion that I want to do a spell on. So referring to that Google Doc that I said. Then I will read over the verse several times in different versions to find a version that suits me. Most of the time it's NIV, but every once in a while I'll connect to another version as well. My Bible is KS. Oh my gosh. Let me just try to find it. Hold on. I found it. It was HCSB. So that's the one that I use for writing notes, like my noting Bible study Bible, where there's lines to take notes on the verses. So that's the version. So NIV and HCSB are the two versions that I use most, but every once in a while another version will call to me, and I'll use that in my spell instead. So then finally, you grab a candle, you anoint it in whatever oils, herbs, spices, powders, rose petals, whatever you want, and grab whatever crystals you want as well. And I surround the crystals around the candle. Then I light the candle, and as the candle burns, I will read the Bible verses over the candle. So sometimes I'll read just one, sometimes I'll read a couple, sometimes I'll read all 6 to 8 that I listed in this video, depending on how powerful I want this spell to be. And that is what I do for my candle magic. And sometimes, depending on the type of candle I'm lighting, like if it's a candle in those glass containers, I won't burn it all the way, because I don't want to, like, it's a big candle and I feel like you don't have to burn the candle all the way. If it's those like long skinny candles, I usually do burn them all the way because it doesn't take long. It's like 1 hour maybe until it burns completely. So I'll burn it all the way through. But you do whatever you feel called to do. Burn however much you feel that you need to for the spell to be like completely released. A lot of people say, oh, the spell won't be released until you burn it all the way, but I don't believe in that. I believe it's all about intention, and I believe it's about how much power you're giving your spell. So, yeah. So that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again, Maria, for your question. If any of you have a question that you'd like to submit, I have the Google Doc in my link tree in the bio of my Instagram account, Andy's Witchcraft. And yeah, so that is the end of it. Blessed be, and I hope you have a wonderful day, week, month, year.